July 1945. World War II is drawing to a close. Japan still continues to fight against the Allies. Plans for a land invasion of Japan are underway, but such an invasion will be extremely costly and lead to many deaths on either side. However, the United States has successfully developed nuclear weapons and is preparing to use them to force Japanese surrender. On August 6th and 9th, the United States drops nuclear weapons on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. 6 days later, on August 15th, 1945, Japan surrenders to the Allies. On September 2nd, Japan signs the Instrument of Surrender, officially ending World War II. However, this is not the end of the fighting for some Japanese troops. There were a multitude of troops still fighting, known as Holdouts, because they either doubted the news of the formal surrender or had not received word of the surrender at all due to lack of communications. Among the most notable of these Holdouts are Hiroo Onoda, Hiroo Nakamura, and Fumio Nakahara. Forgive me if any name pronunciations in this video are not correct. Hiroo Onoda spent 29 years hiding in the Philippines after the end of the war. He was officially relieved of duty and surrendered on March 9, 1974. Onoda was initially a holdout with 3 other soldiers, Yuichi Akatsu, Shoichi Shimada, and Kinshichi Kozuka. They engaged in numerous shootouts with local police during their time as holdouts. In October of 1945, the group encountered a leaflet left behind by local islanders, which read, "The war ended on August 15th. Come down from the mountains." The group did not trust the authenticity of the leaflet, however, and concluded that it was Allied propaganda. They also believed that if the war had truly ended, they would not have been fired upon by police and locals. Later, in 1945, leaflets were airdropped with a surrender order printed on them from General Tomiyuki Imashita. The men had now been in hiding for over 6 months, and this leaflet was the only real evidence they had that the war was over. Onoda's group investigated the leaflets closely, and ultimately determined that the leaflets were not real and authentic, as they had with the paper left by the islanders months before. In 1949, Yuichi Akatsu left the others and spent 6 months alone, before finally turning himself into the Philippine forces in 1950. In 1952, letters and family photos were airdropped to the remaining men, urging them to surrender. The soldiers once again believed this was another trick by the Allies. In June of 1953, Shoichi Shimada was shot in the leg during a battle with local fishermen, but Onoda was able to nurse him back to health. On May 7th of 1954, Shimada was killed in a battle with a search party looking for the men. Kinshichi Kozuka remained alive for many more years until he was killed by local police on October 19th, 1972. Kozuka and Onoda were burning rice collected by local farmers as part of their ongoing guerrilla warfare activities. Onoda is now all alone. It is now February 20th, 1974. Onoda meets a Japanese man, Norio Suzuki, who is in the area searching for him. The two talked and became friends, but Onoda still refused to surrender, claiming that he could not surrender without orders from a superior officer. Suzuki returned to Japan with photographs of himself with Onoda as proof that the two had met each other. The Japanese government contacted Onoda's commanding officer, Yoshimi Tamaguchi, who had long since retired from the military. On March 9th, 1974, Taniguchi met with Onoda, fulfilling a promise that he had made back in 1944. "Whatever happens, we'll come back for you." Onoda was promptly relieved of his duty by Taniguchi and promptly surrendered. He turned over his sword, Arisaka Type 99 rifle, 500 rounds of ammunition, and several hand grenades, as well as the dagger his mother had given him back in 1944 to kill himself with, were he to be captured. Onoda was very popular when he returned to Japan. He released an autobiography titled "No Surrender, My 30-Year War," detailing his life fighting a war that ended many years ago. A Philippine documentary interviewed people who had encounters with Onoda during his time as a guerrilla fighter, revealing that he had killed several people during this time. The news media documented and reporting on these killings, but Onoda was still welcomed home in Japan. Not much a fan of the spotlight, Onoda moved to Brazil to raise cattle in April of 1975, but periodically came back to Japan. In 1984, Onoda returned to Japan and founded the Onoda Nature School. He died of heart failure on January 16, 2014, in Tokyo. The only holdout to remain longer than Onoda was Hiroo Nakamura, a Taiwanese-Japanese soldier who spoke neither Japanese or Chinese. He was stationed on Morotai Island in East Indonesia. After the war, it is assumed that Nakamura remained on the island with other holdouts well into the 50s. In 1956, he set off on his own to create a solitary camp consisting of a small hut in a fenced-off field. In mid-1974, a pilot accidentally discovered Nakamura's hut, and the Japanese embassy in the area promptly sent out a search party to find him. On December 18, 1974, Nakamura was arrested by Indonesian soldiers and taken to a hospital in Jakarta. He opted to go to Taiwan instead of Japan, where the Chinese nationalist government called him a Japanese loyalist. Japanese public perception of Nakamura was very different from other holdouts, such as Onoda. Due to his low ranking of private and being part of a colonial unit stationed on foreign soil, Nakamura was not awarded a pension and received only a one-time payment of 68,000 yen, equal to about $1,300 today. Public outcry led to the Taiwanese government and the public to donate a total of 4.25 million yen to Nakamura. He died of lung cancer 5 years later after receiving this, on June 15, 1979. Fumio Nakahara was another holdout, except he was never found. There was a report that he was holding out in the Philippines in January of 1980, and a search team believed that they had found his hut. Nakahara was never found, either dead or alive, and there is also no conclusive evidence that he was alive anywhere at the time his hut was found in 1980.